Welcome to The Real Final Mile, life in big and bulky home delivery, the only podcast dedicated to the delivery professionals that bring your large consumer goods to your home.
If you deliver big stuff for a living, this is for you. Refrigerators, sofas, bedroom sets, treadmills, home gyms. You are the one who turns a tracking number into a real thing in someone's home. And whether anyone tells you this or not, you are the face of the brand the second that door opens. Now, here's the question. Are you walking into that home as just the delivery guys or as trained professionals who know exactly what they are doing? Doolin Strategy Partners have been in logistics for about 30 years. We've seen a lot, but we are still learning on how to be better today than yesterday. Anyone who claims to know it all, steer clear of them. They are a claim waiting to be filed. Most drivers and helpers are thrown the keys, given an address, and told, figure it out. Figure out how to move a 400-pound fridge around a tight corner. Figure out how to deal with a frustrated customer. Figure out how to protect floors, walls, and your own back. That is not fair to you. And it's not safe either. Here is the good news. You can level up your skills, your confidence, and your value. That is where Get Doolin training for the final mile comes in. It's built for you, the people in the truck, not just the people in the office. We focus on the stuff that actually matters on the job. How to protect the customer's home, how to avoid damage, how to communicate like a pro, and how to represent yourself like a real professional, not just a driver. Here is why this matters for you. When you are trained and certified, you make fewer mistakes. You deal with less drama and fewer callbacks. Customers respect you more. Retailers and 3PLs see you as the crew they can count on. That is how you become the go-to team, the one they request, the one they keep, the one they pay. You already do the hard part. You lift, carry, climb stairs, deal with weather, traffic, and tight spaces. So why not get the credit and the confidence that comes with real training and certification? If you're not using Get Doolin yet, why not? You want access to training that is made for final mile delivery, not some generic motivational video that has nothing to do with what you do every day. You are not just delivery. You are the last mile, the final impression, the reason a customer says, "That was a great experience," or "Never again." So invest in your craft. Download the app. Get Doolin training for the final mile. It's not hard to find, and the value is clear. For your customers, for your company, and for you, the professional walking through that front door. Thank you for watching, and welcome to Get Doolin Training, the only platform out there listening to you and providing real training that adds value. Doolin Strategy Partners has you covered here.
Welcome back to The Real Final Mile, life in big and bulky home delivery. I'm here today with Aaron Lipcon, and we are going to talk all things home delivery. Aaron and I have quite the history together, and Aaron has a heck of a story to tell of his own. Aaron, thank you for joining us.
John, thanks for having me. I appreciate being here. Just really have been watching your LinkedIn and all the things you're doing in the education world. So happy to be here.
I appreciate that. And obviously you're aware, and we'll dive into it later in the podcast, but you're a pioneer in that area for me. Really a huge motivation with some of the things that you've built, and really just looking to carry that torch. So, Aaron, for someone meeting you for the first time, how do you describe what you do in the final mile world?
Yeah, start with a great question, or a big one. Well, in the final mile world, I believe all of us are gift givers and dream makers, because we execute on the big purchase that the customer wants, whether it's furniture, whether it's appliance, whatever it is, we get it to them and make sure they're happy.
Okay. And when people call you a final mile subject matter expert, what parts of the job do you think you're most well known for?
Design and strategy of a delivery network. I've got a lot of experience in building and optimizing networks. and hand in hand with that, knowledge and knowledge transfer and education. I'm a big believer of teaching people how to execute this vertical and then how to be great at it, because it is customer facing, and it's the one thing people always remember is how their delivery go.
I agree with you. I think that's a huge value add. I appreciate you sharing that. So you've been in the delivery leadership for a long time. What pulled you into the space originally?
It's an interesting story. I got my CDL years and years ago, and I started driving for a big box retailer, and what I learned in that experience was I really enjoyed watching people's faces light up when you pull up to the house, and they're waiting, and they've been waiting, and they're just, their projects are there, or whatever the case may be. It was just exciting to be a part of that dream come true, if you will, or that next step of the project. And with that passion, I just continued to develop my skill set and also develop the retail final mile as it grew into what it is today. And at every step, I was blessed with some progressive opportunities to lead teams and do some great things in the industry.
Okay. So speaking of that, what lessons from that early part of your career still shapes how you lead teams today?
Yeah, that's a good one. So I sort of run on a three-legged stool. It's stability, service, and then financials. And I'll start with the stability part. And that early lesson is really understanding where the work gets executed, and providing understanding and respect to those frontline folks, the teams going into the home, and the administrative piece, and all the people involved in making the customer experience number one. John, it's really understanding where the work gets done, and providing guidance, leadership, and understanding of the frontline folks, the teams going into the home, all the people behind the scenes, making sure the customer experience is a number one. It's that respect and that understanding of knowing where that rubber meets the road, to use that term. It has been a base foundation for me, because everything starts there.
What was the problem statement you were trying to solve there?
Yeah, so that was an interesting deal. So Lowe's was predominantly in-house or W-2. And so when I arrived there, the goal was to convert it to a third party or an outsourced model, and design and stand up a cross-dock model, what is now called the XDT model. And so that was the target and the major task of the role when I arrived.
Okay. So standing up 21 facilities is not a small task. I say that from experience. I've traveled the country opening up distribution centers in small cross docks. How did you think about site selection, your ramp up plans, and the consistency across the networks? Talk me through how that worked for you.
Well, it was a team effort, but at the beginning, the delivery team, quote unquote, we started about 9 months before the plan go live, if you will, of the first location. And that planning started with assembling all the right stakeholders and making sure that everybody who could possibly be impacted or possibly be touched by outsourcing or changing the delivery model that they had been running for so many years was critical. So I was able to get HR, legal, marketing people, partners, all the different verticals within the corporate structure. There was probably 30 people, on an ongoing 2 time a week basis where we all met. And it was 8 months of planning, 8 months of how we would notify, how we would transition, how we would communicate to the public, everything from carrier selection to site selection. And it was about where did we have the biggest bang for the buck. So we looked at existing framework and what was around it, because in this design there were what in the middle mile would be a hub or a major big distribution center, and then they would ship to all the smaller delivery hubs. And so we wanted to pick a place where geographically it was cost effective. There wasn't a lot of geographical constraints. You don't want to go into New York City or anything for a startup, because there's a lot of geographical constraints and things. So we just got everybody together and got IT together and put together a map of the country, where the current infrastructure was, how we were going to place a location. Now it wasn't a build to suit, it was a what's available. So we had to make sure that our real estate and our sourcing group understood the minimum requirements. How many doors do you need? What square footage? What on ramp, off ramp? Is there an interstate nearby? What are all the key things that you have to think about when you're actually rolling down the road and such? And so 8 or so months of that planning got us to a point where we had a good list of locations and put together a nice presentation, went to senior leadership and the board of Lowe's and the ELT, and presented our plan and what we wanted to do. And it was great. I had so much support, 20 plus people, 30 people behind me. And they said, yeah, let's go. And so this is where the story actually gets really, really cool. Not cool. It sort of got scary, but cool at the same time. So we said, all right, let's go. And this started in 2018. And when we were getting ready to go, this little thing called COVID hit. And everybody looked around at everybody and was like, what are we going to do? Because everybody was stuck at home, nobody could work and this and that. So we came up with a plan, got everybody to buy in, the providers, the company, and everybody. And we converted during COVID. And looking back on it, it was probably it was a blessing in disguise, because what we were able to do is we were able to get a lot of the internal things, training, education, movement, HR movement of people and things done while the business was a little bit slow. And so that helped us gain a little bit of traction. As we got really good at repeating the process, we popped up those 21 plus in no time. It was a great opportunity. In fact, the company didn't even realize we had gotten, the 22 plus open until we told them.
What were some of the execution risks that you had, and how did you control them?
Well, the biggest execution risk was getting the people to the right places, to get the buildings up and running, to get the store meetings scheduled and handled. A lot of those were scheduled in person, and then we had to immediately pivot to do online and such. And then we had to go back to HR to make sure that they were okay with that, because their plan was all in person, and doing it online is very impersonal and blah, blah. You get the point there. And so it was really a logistics project within a logistics project to really move people around and get them in the right place and do it safely, right? When, masks and self-breathing apparatus, who knows what people were wearing, but it was quite a feat. And I'll tell you, John, we couldn't have done it. Lowe's could not have done it without the providers we chose, because those providers, and we chose 6 to do this to do this transition across the country, those providers were invaluable because together we partnered up, and together we were able to convert those stores to third party, meaning they got teams in place, they recruited, they onboarded all the things they needed to do, and we were able to get there and get the buildings up and running, with a little bit lack of technology at the time because that was slowed down due to COVID and so on. And but the team, I mean, the providers were instrumental in helping us with that. And that's one thing I just really want to point out is you find good providers in this industry, and it's you really want to work with them and grow with them, and make sure you don't let little things pry the relationship apart, because at the end of the day, it's the brand, and it's the retailer's brand, and we just all need to remember that.
So how did you align all this between store operations, bringing in these carriers, then you had your customers' expectation?
Well, first of all, it was tremendous communication, a lot of planning, a lot of meetings, a lot of doubling back and making sure everybody understood, long-term, short-term impacts, those types of things. Now, did we do it flawlessly? No. Emails were missed, and people were out, and so on. But what we did do is we were able to keep our senior leadership fully abreast of what was going on. Our field teams, which in a large retailer like this, they have divisional teams and region teams. We kept them very close to us because without their help, we couldn't execute either. They're like a provider, they're boots on the ground type. And so we just over communicated, and I was able to build a team that really I could count on. And when I was distracted with some other issue or problem in the business or opportunity in the business, I knew that team was, understood the goal, understood the expectations, and could carry the water as we went. And they did. And so I would say to answer the question, the key was over communicating and just making sure that everybody's questions got answered. And when they didn't quite understand or didn't quite agree, we brought in, sort of some horsepower behind it to say, hey, these folks understand it, and maybe they can help you or help me explain to you, or whatever the case may be. So it was good partnership and lots of communication.
What did you do to protect that customer experience? I mean, you were basically changing engines mid-flight.
Well, that goes back to making sure we picked the right providers and the right teams. And I picked some really big ones. I picked a couple of medium size, and I picked a couple of sort of smaller ones. And the reason I did that is because we needed flexibility, but we also needed stability. And so, everybody was able to just execute on the plan. And again, the planning was the key, but we executed on the plan. The plan was solid. It was duplicatable. And so we just went from market to market to market and did it the exact same way every single time. And we did it. We had 6 providers. We broke my team up into 6 different teams, and we would do 6 markets at a time. And so we were able to convert those at 6 markets at a time, anywhere from 15 to 25 stores a market. And we just started clicking them off, and until we were able to get to a point where the organization said, okay, we're good for right now. So yeah, it was tough. There were some white knuckle times, and there were some just like, oh goodness gracious, what do you mean we forgot a mask? That kind of thing. So, but overall it was good, and I'm really proud of that time. It was really a good time.
What advice on the retailer side do you have for a retailer trying to select a third-party partner?
You're a retailer looking for a partner, a good partner. Okay. Put cost number 3 or 4 on your priority list. I know that's tough, I know nobody understands that, and everybody says, well, gosh, cost is number one priority, but it needs to be third or fourth. And here's why. Because a good provider will not be the cheapest. I will tell you that. You get what you pay for in this industry. And a good provider is one that's flexible, a one that has the brand's best interest in mind, has a process and a program that drives excellence through data, key performance indicators and things in each one of their locations, whether it's back of store, whether it's off of a facility dock, what have you, and one that comes to the table with solutions that work within your ability to change, right? Because retailers, they want a lot. When I was in that seat, I wanted the world, okay? Because when you're in that seat, you can ask for the world. But the reality is, you want somebody who won't give you the world. You want somebody who will tell you what's reality, okay? And once you find that, then cost becomes nominal. And what I mean by that is your service and the customer feedback and the store associates' confidence just starts to bloom. And that's what consistent, excellent service looks like. Because it's always going to cost money, regardless. Mm-hmm. It's just gonna. And so that's my advice for a retailer looking for a third party.
What advice do you have for a 3PL who's targeting a retailer?
From the other side in, it would be the reverse. Don't buy the business, because everybody knows, not everybody, but a lot of people know that someone will lowball their way in, and they'll get in, and their mindset, because I've been on both sides, their mindset is, well, I'll win the business, and then I'll show where things may not have been exactly what was RFP'd, and so I need an extra, and I can raise the price over time. That makes the relationship start out on the wrong foot, and it really doesn't heal after that, because it's always, it becomes price, a commodity. And when when everybody's got, sheetrock, what's the lowest you want to sell it for? And that, but a delivery is not sheetrock. It's highly variable. So that's what I would say from a 3PL looking for a partner. And then be ready. Last thing, be ready to work your rear end off, because corporate retail and field execution often has a gap, and you just have to be able to find ways to bridge that gap and make sure that alignment is happening.
What are the first three things you look at to understand how an operation is performing?
Where does that location or region, where does it sit in regards to their competition? If there are no competition, where is it in regards to internal KPIs and things of that nature? The second thing I look at, so I understand where it sits, right? If it's at the bottom, I know that the field is pretty broad. If it's in the middle, then, it's a little bit narrower as far as things to improve. And then if it's at the top, how can we just, expand that gap a little bit? And I do that through understanding the customer's feedback. Where are the pinch points? What don't they like? What don't they get solved quickly? Because what'll happen over time is people will stop responding when they feel there's no way to change it. And then that creates a black hole from a communication perspective. And then the retailer or the customer starts to feel like they're not getting what they need from a provider standpoint. So I look at performance and where they rack. I look at listen to customer feedback and what their pinch points are. And then I take a look at and I listen to what the provider's feedback is. where do they think the problems are? What can be fixed to make them do a better job, to then make the retailer feel better, to then make the customer feel better, and so on and so forth. Data is your friend. Okay. In final mile, you get a lot of anecdotal, a lot of reasons why, and I can't do this, I can't do that, but the data is the data, and the data is the thing you need to fall back on. So data is probably number one. Make sure that you understand where the work is executed. Show respect to the front line. Show respect to the contractors, the teams, the employee, whatever it is that you operate. The people that execute the work are often the ones people don't think much of, unfortunately, in this industry, which is a whole nother topic we can get on. But once you show that respect, and once you show that you really understand what they go through on a daily basis and that you're there to help them, things start to turn in a hurry. So showing that frontline respect, always be kind. It's something I had to learn early in I learned it later in my career. Sometimes, you get caught up in things and you're not as kind as you want to be. And you always look back and say, gosh, I should have done that differently. Think, and be kind. Be honest. Honest is a very, very important thing in this industry, because honesty keeps everybody sort of in check and such. And then, this is probably going to sound a little cliche, but the customer is always right, even if they're not. Okay. And if you follow those 5 things, you will navigate yourself pretty well through this vertical, in my opinion.
So what is your approach to carrier management and negotiation so the partnership stays strong and performance stays real?
There was a time, way back years, 20, 25 years ago, where, it was sort of the times when you would sort of be a little rough and harsh with your providers, and, use a little bit of a heavy hand, if you will. And what I've learned over the years is that works short term, and but it does not create sustainable processes or partnerships. And so what I've learned over the years is putting price a little bit lower on the priority board, and then understanding, where are the providers at, what they can do, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, if I'm choosing one, or if I'm trying to, weed through the plethora of options, if you will. And then I have conversations, and here's where we're trying to go. Here's what we're trying to do. Here's what we're trying to achieve. What are your thoughts? And listen and let them explain how they would execute, whether it's a contractor or a delivery team, whether it's a carrier who manages, a bunch of teams, or, whoever. It's listening to what they believe the goal is, and then getting both parties aligned to the mutual goal, right? I may have to come into the middle a little bit. They may have to come into the middle a little bit. And then once we have that, then we can create, that ongoing partnership. So and the negotiations from a price perspective are much easier after that, because both sides understand both situations, and everybody can come to a place where, if executed well, everybody's okay.
So how do you balance speed, quality, and cost when the business wants all 3 yesterday?
I don't think I've been in an organization that hasn't had this predicament, right? Everybody, I want it yesterday. I want it, I want a 10 on every delivery, and I want it to cost $1. But what I've learned over time is all 3 are very difficult to achieve, because cost is the one that everybody has their own opinion on. If you talk to a financial person, that cost is much different than if you talk to a CEO or a a senior director of whatever. So I try to ask a few questions, qualifying questions. What's most important is having the customer remember positively the delivery and the brand and what we did for them. If that's most important, then we know that goes service goes on top. And if we want it next day or within 2 hours or whatever, then we know speed is the most important. But whatever is the most important, whatever that priority is, the other two become negotiable. Because if you want speed and quality, then your cost is negotiable. If you want low cost and speed, then your service is going to be negotiable. So that's how I go about it, is I just try to understand what they really want.
Tell me about a time that you had to turn around an underperforming operation, and what was the first thing that you changed?
One of the very first things I do is I go and I get to know the people who make the work happen, the teams, the contractors, the dock workers, the administrative staff, and I change the culture as fast as I can. And just by giving a little bit of an ear, showing that you care, being there every day, being in the trenches with them, answering the phones, solving the problems. If you have to run out to a job site to take them something, then you do it. You just get it done. And that builds the credibility. It builds the respect on their side to you, you to them. And all of a sudden, the operation starts to turn. Now, there's things you have to do. Do you have to get clear on KPIs and what the expectations are and revisit those and have stand-ups every single day and talk about what the expectation is, what the path is, safety, clean, all those things. Yes, you have to do all those things. But the key is the personability. It's the respect. It's making sure that they understand, you understand that they have a job that's not easy. And, okay. And they do it a lot.
And then at one point, we both woke up in the morning and said, I think these guys want to be better. I think they want training, and I think I'm going to go build it. But you are the mastermind, the inventor of code. I'd like to dive into that. So you helped build training and certification within the industry. Why, in your opinion, does standardization matter so much in home delivery?
From a operator's perspective, if everybody's operating on the same set of rules, same set of guidelines, same set of processes, it's very easy to watch your KPIs and to see trends start to break the wrong way. And so you can quickly get to a problem and see what's going on and try to stem that issue. That's from a back end perspective, that's very important. From the team's perspective, you have to make sure that everything is done repeatable, so it becomes habit, right? So do the day before calls go out? Do the 30-minute pre-calls happen? Do you communicate and walk the path with the customer? All these things have to happen every single delivery, every single time. And once it becomes habit, that becomes your standard. And then the customer experience gets raised. So all that being said, all those things being similar or repeatable and duplicatable until you enter the house, because that's where the variability happens. So if you can standardize everything up until that point, and you let these professionals go in and execute depending on the variabilities of the house, and they standardly, do the same process over and over again, check for leaks, and I'm getting a little deep in the minutia, but check for leaks and or make sure everything's balanced and so on and so forth. The customer experience just elevates. And people then start talking about it, because in today's world, it's very easy to say, I had a terrible experience, and a million people see it in 30 seconds. It's very easy to say, man, I just bought from X retailer and their delivery was phenomenal. fantastic, and the same million people see it. So, it's very important to be as standardized as possible, both for the worker, for the contractor, for the backline, frontline, back end folks, and then the customer experience.
So having said that, name one or two skills that you believe every delivery team must have before they ever ring the customer's doorbell?
Patience and the ability to want to be the best.
What changes in Final Mile are you most excited about over the next 2 to 3 years?
Artificial intelligence and how it can flatten out some of the administrative tasks to provide a better experience with the customer. And what I mean by that is, more consistency in pre-calls, more consistency in understanding take rate of pre-call, because a lot of times, operational do all their pre-calls, whether they're automated or not. And the feedback after the delivery is, I didn't even know they were coming because I didn't get the pre-call or whatever. So how often does the pre-call not get answered? And that AI can give us that in-depth data. And though I don't think AI can really help a lot with routing in Final Mile, because that's very customer input heavy at the point of purchase. But I think with knowing what the routing is, AI can help us with real-time traffic and some of these other things that I think can shave off a few dollars on an expense perspective.
Those dollars get pushed over to help pay for the service and elevate the pay that these folks make for executing these deliveries each and every day. Because we need to, going back to the professionalism, we need to make sure that we all understand that they do a tough job, and they do something that's very, very intrusive to a customer's home. So making sure that they're compensated right, educated, knowledgeable, it's key.
What would you want your teams to say about you after a tough peak season?
He knew what we were going through because he was there with us.
Okay. And then where do you personally get your leadership fuel when the pressure is high?
Well, I'm a self-driven individual, and I am a servant leader to where I don't like to. I like to make sure that I don't let anybody down, and that drive keeps me fueled up and moving forward to get through the rough spots. And I've been through a few rough spots, and it seems to, be a consistent way to get through them every time, is just keep moving forward and don't let anybody down.
So if you could wave a magic wand and fix one thing in Final Mile Big and Bulky, what would you change first and why?
I'll go back to that professionalism, that gaining that understanding that the folks executing the deliveries that the customer has purchased that protect the brand of the retailer are true professionals, and they need to be treated like and handled as such. And I'll give you one example. I had it's a little not as cold up in where you are, but I'm down in the south, and it was a little bit cold, and our heater had a problem. And when I called the HVAC company and I said, hey, need to get someone out here, blah, blah, blah. They said, okay. And I said, can they be here tomorrow? And they said, no. And so they gave me a week out. And so then I called another one, and I got a few days out. And so then I said, okay, well, how much does it cost? And they said, well, it's, X dollars just to go out and see what it is. And I tried to negotiate with them, and there was no negotiation. I mean, if you don't want to pay it, don't, okay, no problem. We'll move on to the next, so using that analogy, and it's a little bit scattered maybe, but we need to make sure that these professionals, delivery teams, people going in the homes, taking care of the customer, you can't negotiate their level of service. I mean, we have to make sure that we give them every tool possible, including financial or otherwise, knowledge or education, to make sure that they are ready to go and protect the brand. And so it's all goes back to that professionalism. I wish that and after 30 years, I'm still seeking it, that we treated these folks better. That's all.
Aaron, thanks again for joining me. Really appreciate it. I hope that this has been as fun for you as it has been for me. Any parting comments, questions?
John, I just appreciate the opportunity, the time. I love what you're doing. You've taken sort of that initial brainchild of code that I started and have just bloomed it into something really, really cool. And I've signed up for your leadership roundtable at the end of the month, just so you know.
That's awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. And that those have been really cool to bring together just a variety of people. And the coolest part about it is like people that I'm not even connected with on LinkedIn are signing up and joining that. So yeah, I appreciate that. Looking forward to it. I think you're gonna have a good time. The last couple have been pretty fun. We get some good people in there who enjoy learning from each other and aren't afraid to share some of their experiences.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait.
Yeah.